Good evening, Video Diary. I would like to tell you about a compositional technique that I've been using at the end of the symphony, or not actually, the very end, close to the end. When I've explained what it is, I'd be interested to know if anybody knows of other composers that have used this. I've used it a few times. I think I got it just by listening to some music and thinking, oh, maybe that's what they're doing, but I didn't know. I didn't see the score. So I've sort of made it up to create a particular type of sound. Anyway, what I do first is write a tune, usually something reasonably slow, reasonably simple. This is a little mournful, modal. It starts off with that rising minor sixth that I talked about before. The tune itself begins as follows. That's just the first part of it. Okay, so those notes are played by an instrument. The next instrument plays exactly the same notes in exactly the same order, but each note is twice as long. So it will be like this. And so on. If I put the two together, we'll get this. And so on. Now I then create a third part where the notes are 3 times as long as the first part, a fourth part where they're 4 times as long. That's as far as I've got this time. I think I once did something where there was a fifth part, notes 5 times as long. Those notes become extremely long, especially if the basic pulse of the music is reasonably slow, like in what I just played you. Anyhow, that's the basic idea that I'm using. Now, when you use a technique, you could use a technique like that and just whatever's come out, just let it be. I did do that once. This time I've definitely not done this. I've used that technique as a first stage, and then I've had to make some decisions. So I've had to decide, do I want all the parts to begin at the same moment? I could stagger them where they start. How long do I want this to go on for? Because the fourth part with the notes that are the longest, really very long, if I were to let that play the whole tune, that would be a long time, longer than I would want in this context at any rate. So I've got to limit the amount of time that this takes. Also, some of the resulting harmonies, which are incidental. I'm not thinking about the harmony when I do this to start with. That's what's interesting about it. It's simply thinking of the melody, thinking that direction. I'm not thinking that way at the beginning at all. But then I do start to think that way when I've got all the parts together and I listen to what harmonies are being created by these 4 independent parts. And then I do occasionally just modify. I think, no, that note isn't quite right. I'm going to put that down, one up, one, whatever. So I do a bit of manipulation. So that's it, really. I just thought it might be interesting to explain that little technique. And yes, please tell me, do you know of anybody else that does that or something similar to that?